Hi there, good that you join me. This is Bob Hatton and this is The Encourager. And hey, I've got an encouraging word for you today. You know, we finished off yesterday and I said there was three things. There's about thinking back about what God has done in your life. Don't forget all the good things He's done in your life. The second thing was that we should remember that God has now given us an identity. And the third thing is that we've got an inheritance. We've got the promises of God. So let's just start today and talk about the first thing, not to forget what God has done in your life, but also in the life of the nations. And you know, I'm now getting it to be a little bit historical, and I'm not an historian, but I love history. And you know, there's an incident what happened about 75 years ago, 1940. It was at the start of the Second World War. A man called Christopher Nolan, he made a film. It's actually a remake of another film in 2017, and you can still watch it on Amazon or in Netflix, although I'm not getting any support from these two companies for me mentioning them. And the story about Dunkirk is that the German Wehrmacht attacked France. They came into the country, they invaded the country, but there were Allied forces who were ready to stop them. But when they were attacked by this massive force of the German army, they retreated. They retreated so fast that within maybe two weeks they ended up on the beach in Dunkirk, which is one of the ports, one of the coastal cities on the English Channel. But they were there. They couldn't retreat any farther because the water was there, and the Nazis, they were pressing in on them, and they'd surrounded them, and the thing was getting tighter and tighter. And then suddenly Hitler said, "Stop." And you know, the historians, they're wondering, why on earth did he do that? What was happening? It made no sense. It made no sense militarily. And there's this suggestion, there's that suggestion, the speculation here, the speculation there. In the meanwhile, though, the British generals or whatever, they were trying to organize a plan to get them off the beach. At the same time, King George VI, he declared that the coming Sunday was going to be a day of national prayer. And he called the nation together, that they all go to church and they all pray for the dire situation they were in. Germany could have easily just destroyed these 400,000 soldiers on the beaches in Dunkirk, and the Second World War would have been finished, and Europe would have been ruled by the Nazis, and what terrible things would have happened during that time. But anyway, they had stopped. King George had called now a day of prayer, and in the meanwhile, people started to come from the south coast of England. Some of them came just in small boats. They could only pick up one, maybe two, maybe three soldiers. Bigger boats came to take more. And on Monday, Hitler said, you know, carry on, destroy them, kill them all. But the airplanes couldn't take off because the weather was so bad. And during this time, they got as many people, that was Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, they got as many off the beaches as they could. And I think it was 380,000 people were evacuated from those beaches. And in the Sunday, I think 2 weeks later, they had the king, he called then for a day of national thanksgiving. Unfortunately, we've not had anybody who's called a day of national prayer since then. But you know, prayer does change the situation. It changes the situation of nations, and this is something that is really, we should really remember that. And this is thinking about the good things that God has done in your life, in your national life. But what about our personal lives? And I could stand here, I could maybe talk for hours about what we have experienced. But I thought about one thing, you know, reading through the Bible, there's two incidences where Jesus takes bread and fishes, just two little loaves. I mean, there were two little rolls and a few fishes, very, very small fishes, and he multiplies them and he feeds 5,000 men plus their wives plus their children. That's probably, we're talking about 15,000 people were fed from these small amount of food. Now, many years ago, we invited, when I was still a pastor, to come for a morning of prayer, fellowship, and sharing. We had a guest from overseas who was sharing what he was experiencing in his country. We had a really good time. We read the Bible, we prayed, we talked, we shared, prayed for one another. But the time was going on. My wife was in the kitchen, and she knew the children would be coming home from school in a moment, and she'd have to make lunch. So she came into the living room where we were all very excited and very in deep conversation and everything. And she asked if you'd like to stay for lunch. She didn't really mean, would you like to stay for lunch? What she really meant was, it's now lunchtime, the kids are coming home, and we're going to eat. Why don't you go home? Well, they didn't understand that. They said, yes, we'd love to stay for lunch. My wife went back into the kitchen and said, what on earth am I going to do? We don't have enough food there. We just have enough food for the children, and there won't be anything else left. But she didn't have any other choice. She made what she had, and she knew it wouldn't be enough. But she put it on the table. The children were there. We were about 5 or 6 guys who'd gathered together, and they were all hungry. And we sat down and we started to take this food, one ladle after another. People took extras and so on, a second helping, a third helping, and this food it didn't finish. We even had enough for the next day as a second meal with the same food. It shouldn't have happened like that, really, but God did a miracle for us, in our family. It would have only been embarrassing if we didn't have enough, but God is so good. He came in this moment, and He did a miracle for us, and we're so grateful. And we can look through our lives, the last 50 or something years, and we can see again and again and again where God broke in. We have many things to look back on, and because He did it in the past, He'll do it in the future. Now, in the last book of the Bible, in the book of Revelations, it talks about the devil who accuses the Christians day and night before God, and he tells God all that we're doing wrong. But then it says, and they overcame him. They overcame the accuser of the brethren by the blood of the Lamb, which is the thing that Jesus did on the cross. He died for us. He shed His blood. Nothing can change that. But also by the word of the testimony. That's by proclaiming the things that we've experienced with God. And later in the Bible, in chapter 19 of Revelations, it says the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And when we are testifying about what God has done in our lives, we're actually prophesying, and we're actually saying that what God has done in the past, He will do it again. He is able to do it again. He is able to lead a nation through the Red Sea. He is able to give provision for millions of people. And this was very good for Him to be reminding Israel, just as they're going into a new time, into a new season. They're going to go over the Jordan, a completely new situation for them in the Promised Land. But God is with them. Don't forget what He's done in the past, because what He's done in the past, He can do in the future. Hey, I hope you have a good day. I'm going to see you on Monday. So tomorrow and on Sunday, we don't have any broadcasts, but on Monday, I'll be back again. God bless you. Have a good day. You're Bob Hatton, your encourager.